I kicked my husband out of my life after he abandoned me while I was about to give birth, all for his sister's pretentious wedding. I exposed his family's lies, revealed my Sill's fake image to her husband, and even helped trigger their messy divorce. My name is Julia, 35 femme, and I've been married to Mark, 38 male, for 7 years. Together, we have a 5-year-old daughter, Lucy, and I'm now in my 8th month of pregnancy with our second child. I really just need a place to get all this off my chest. What better spot than the anonymous world of Reddit? Mark has always been weirdly close to his family, especially his mom, Helen, Mill, and his sister, Amber, Sill, 33F. During our early days, this seemed kinda sweet and normal. After we got married, though, I realized the three of them act like this exclusive little club. Their whole vibe is like a clique from high school. They stick together at every event and spend hours trash-talking everyone else. At first, they tried to drag me into their little gossip circle, but I'm just not that person. So eventually, I started ignoring them. To be fair, I kept my distance, and so did they. Helen and Amber weren't ever openly rude, but warmth wasn't exactly their thing. I never made a fuss about it. I just didn't enjoy their mean girl antics or the fakeness that came with it. Once I got pregnant with Lucy, I used it as an excuse to stop visiting them. Their two-faced energy was toxic. Mark, on his own, is decent and kind, but put Mark in a room with his mom and sister, and he just morphs into a different, spineless version of himself. As long as he treated me well at home, I let him have his family time. When Lucy turned 3, though, Helen and Amber started filling her head with crap like, "Mommy is a bad person." My daughter actually stood up for me, then came straight home and told me what happened, sobbing. Mark just laughed it off, saying his family was probably teasing her. But I knew better. From then on, I never let Lucy anywhere near them without me. Then last year, Amber started dating this super rich guy from Scotland. Suddenly she became unbearable, constantly flaunting designer stuff he bought her, acting like royalty at every get-together, and almost always finding a way to make me feel small. Helen, meanwhile, acted like a giggling teenager, loving every bit of it. Normally, they kept their distance, probably because they didn't have anything to show off. But now, fueled by Amber's new romance, they both started throwing subtle digs my way, hinting that I was jealous. Some family members even confirmed what I already sensed from their body language. Not long after, I found out I was pregnant again, and honestly, I was relieved. It gave me a valid reason not to visit that house. Mark tried to push me to let Lucy stay there, but she refused. For anyone about to accuse me of poisoning my daughter against her family, trust me, kids sense fake love better than adults sometimes. My first pregnancy was rough, and Helen and Amber never even checked in. This one was easier, but they actually started dropping by, not to see how I was, but to parade around with new jewelry or show off a pricey new bag. Amber wouldn't shut up about her grand wedding plans in Scotland. I just smiled, a forced, tired smile each time, and tuned out. A week ago, Helen and Amber popped in with a suspicious new attitude, suddenly raving about my baking from years ago, specifically my apple pie and bacon donuts. Amber went on about how no restaurant could compare, and begged me to make them again, this time for Sunday. Even though it was weird, I said I'd try, really just to get them off my back. What I didn't realize was that Sunday was some big family dinner with Amber's rich fiancé and his family. On Friday, over dinner, Mark told me he'd be busy that weekend because Amber's boyfriend and his relatives were coming for that Sunday dinner. Suddenly, everything clicked. The phony praise, the oddly specific dessert request. Amber was trying to serve my food as her own, and somehow I wasn't even invited. When I voiced all this to Mark, he claimed his mom just thought I'd be uncomfortable around the guests because of the pregnancy. They didn't bother to ask me, or even tell me about the event when they visited. Mark shrugged it off as if it didn't matter. He left for his dad, Peter's father, 65 male, countryside place on Saturday, saying he'd be back Sunday night after the dinner. I considered arguing, but figured it would just drain me more. So, Sunday came and went. I locked my phone, spent the day indoors with Lucy, and ignored all attempts from Helen and Amber to reach me, even their angry voicemail left on our landline. Monday morning, I turned my phone back on, only to find loads of missed calls and increasingly nasty messages. The last voicemail was Helen calling me a witch who ruined their big dinner. Apparently, Amber planned to impress her new in-laws with my apple pie, passing it off as her own. But when I didn't deliver, there was no dessert for the sweet-toothed Scots, and everyone blamed me for the disgrace. I just laughed it off. Surely they could have ordered something from a bakery? Apparently, Amber had been loudly hyping her own culinary skills, so delivering store-bought food would have ruined her act. Whatever, I told Helen as much and hung up. There was also a late message from Mark. He wouldn't be coming home that night, would return Monday after work. When he showed up, he was silent but not overtly angry. I tried to bring up Helen's tirade, but he cut me off, saying I should be grateful he wasn't mad at me and that I shouldn't expect him to stand up for me against his mother or sister. That was the breaking point. If I wasn't even invited to this event, how was I supposed to ruin it? We haven't spoken since. It feels like we're done, but I still obsessively question myself. Did I really ruin anything by refusing to bake for people who clearly wanted to take credit for my work while treating me like I was invisible? Update 1. Hey everyone, 2 months have gone by since my original post. I'm now at 40 weeks, about to give birth any day. After that whole dinner fiasco, I started realizing just how much I've tolerated from Mark. 2 weeks later, I had a medical appointment and Mark came along. I brought up the drama, but he told me to forget about it and focus on my health, acting as if nothing was wrong. That secretive energy never went away. Then, just this morning, I woke up to find Mark packing his bags. He was trying to cram his wedding suit into his luggage. I demanded to know what was happening. Mark calmly explained that he was heading to Scotland for Amber's wedding. The shock was overwhelming. Why hadn't he told me sooner? When did they even set the date? It turned out the wedding had been rushed and scheduled last minute, supposedly because Amber's in-laws were only available now. Mark claimed he had no say in the matter. I pointed out that my due date was literally tomorrow. How could he possibly justify disappearing now? All I got were half-hearted answers as he continued packing. Before I could really confront him, the doorbell rang. In stormed Helen, barking at Mark that he was running late. She tugged his bags away, shouting that anything he forgot could be bought in Scotland, with a little pointed smirk at me. I realized then that arguing was pointless. I threw the rest of his packed stuff in the living room, locked myself and Lucy in my bedroom, and let Helen fume outside. Only after they left did I see how deeply this had all hurt me, physically and emotionally. Lucy found me crying soon after. She gave me a hug, told me we'd be okay, and reminded me that soon there would be another baby in the house. Her words made me break down again, but I held her close, and we spent the rest of the day cuddling. I called my own sister to come stay just in case I went into labor. All of this has left me shaken. Even now, I'm barely holding it together. Wish me luck. Update 2. Hi everyone. Months have passed since my last update. First off, I'm happy to say I have a healthy baby boy now. The day after Mark left, I logged onto Facebook and saw him sharing cheerful photos from Amber's Scottish wedding. I broke down, keeping it from Lucy, and sobbed in the bathroom for over an hour. Just as I was about to collapse, I noticed my water had broken. What happened next is mostly a blur. I managed to call an ambulance and somehow get Lucy with me. The next thing I remembered was being in the hospital. Lucy had been found crying beside me, so the medics brought her along. Not long after I arrived, I gave birth. The staff tried to call Mark, but his number was unavailable. My sister, who lived 2 hours away, rushed to be with me. She scolded me for not calling her sooner and told me I needed to be completely done with Mark. Because of how things looked, hospital staff notified the police, who asked if I'd been abused. I told them Mark hadn't physically hurt me, but abandonment, in my condition, was real emotional harm. The authorities ended up charging him with negligence, as his absence put both me and the kids in danger. 2 days later, my parents arrived, flying in from over 2,000 miles away. They insisted I sue Mark and his family for everything they'd done. While I recovered, they packed up my stuff at Mark's house. Once released, I left with Lucy and my newborn son to live with my parents. About a week after all this, Mark finally came back to our empty house and found divorce papers and a notice from the police. Apparently, instead of rushing home post-wedding, he'd stuck around Scotland on vacation, posting about it all over Facebook. I ignored his frantic messages and calls. Then came Helen's desperate voicemails, begging for us to speak. I told my parents, and my dad had Mark come for a meeting. Mark showed up with Helen, only to be read the riot act by my parents, who threatened legal hell for everything their family did to me. Later, Mark pleaded for forgiveness, urging me to reunite as a family because the kids need a father. I asked if he even knew the gender of our new baby. He didn't, and the silence that followed was deafening. Helen tried to convince me not to damage their family's reputation, insisting that Amber's in-laws must never find out the truth. I laughed in her face. They begged to see the children, but I refused. My father forced them out of the house. For good measure, I contacted Amber's now husband on social media. I'd never met him before. He had always found it odd that Mark's family excluded me from dinners and the wedding, supposedly because I was pregnant. When I told him everything that had happened, he was both shocked and grateful for the honesty. I explained how Amber pretended to be a great chef, thanks to my apple pie, while in reality, she could barely boil water. Turns out, Helen had even told him and his family they owned a restaurant chain, and Amber had been lying about her job and their wealth the whole time. Soon after our conversation, Amber's husband hired someone to look into the family's background. He found out they weren't wealthy at all and realized Amber had been stealing money from his family. Divorce papers were filed, and word spread that she was being investigated for theft. Now, nearly a year later, my divorce is finalized. I was awarded enough alimony and child support, plus a share of the house. Mark has 3 months to buy out my share, or the house goes up for sale. Amber soon sent me furious texts accusing me of ruining her life. Her husband left her, and they discovered her web of lies. Last I heard, she's back living with Helen in their tiny apartment, broke. Apparently, the trio is back to their old gossip games, but now without any riches to brag about. I sip my wine and wish them a nice, quiet life in poverty. That's it for this story. The story shows the toxicity of unchecked enmeshment within families and how enabling this dynamic can backfire on everyone. Sometimes, standing up for yourself means burning bridges that were only ever one way. I've got a question for you. What would you have done if you were in Julia's shoes? Do you think cutting off your spouse's family is justified if they treat you this way? Let me know your thoughts.